Yo, what is up guys, Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So obviously this past weekend, Dillian Whyte avenged his knockout loss to Alexander Povetkin, and he knocked out Povetkin in the 4th round of their rematch. And subsequent to that, people have been discussing where does Dillian Whyte go next. And one of the names that was mentioned by Eddie Hearn in particular was Deontay Wilder. I think we can all agree, if we could choose any fight for Dillian Whyte next, it would be the Wilder fight. I think most people would agree on that. I personally believe that is the most interesting fight out there for Dillian Whyte. Stylistically on paper, I believe that fight would be entertaining, and I would imagine somebody would get knocked the hell out in that fight. Also the build-up would be very entertaining as well. So I think that fight has all of the ingredients to be a big event, and fans would certainly be interested. Obviously that fight has its problems in regards to making it. You know, Eddie Hearn and Deontay Wilder, of course, do not have the greatest relationship in the world. That much is clear. And, you know, just Matchroom and the PBC in general haven't always seen eye to eye in recent years. So negotiations for that fight would be extremely tricky, and in my opinion that would be a hard fight to make. Also, I think that the PBC are keeping Deontay Wilder back. I think they want Deontay Wilder versus Andy Ruiz maybe towards the end of this year. So Deontay Wilder as a realistic opponent, to me, is kind of unlikely. However, it's the fight that's being talked about amongst fans, so let's talk about it. Now, following Dillian Whyte's win over Povetkin in that rematch, I've noticed a lot of people on social media, you know, convincingly say that Dillian Whyte beats Deontay Wilder and knocks him out. And while that is a possibility, I would certainly give Dillian Whyte a chance in that fight. I'm not as convinced as a lot of people are in regards to Dillian Whyte beating Deontay Wilder. I think that's a real risky fight for Dillian Whyte, to tell you the truth. Obviously, you know, Deontay Wilder right now, we've got no idea where he's at after that Tyson Fury loss. If his head is still right, and once he gets back into the ring he's what he usually is, I believe that's a very dangerous fight for Dillian Whyte. Don't get me wrong, I fully understand why people would think Dillian Whyte beats Deontay Wilder. As we saw in that Tyson Fury fight, when Wilder was forced on the back foot, he was redundant as a puncher. He was worked on the inside, and he had no answer for Tyson Fury. Of course, if Dillian Whyte gets on Deontay Wilder's chest, he can do some serious damage. In my opinion, Dillian Whyte hits harder than Tyson Fury, and up close he's got some good hooks to the body and head, and you know, he's a strong physical guy. So if Dillian can spend time on Deontay Wilder's chest, there's every chance that Dillian Whyte could definitely stop Deontay Wilder. I don't think Deontay could take too much of what Dillian has to offer in those sort of areas, if I'm being honest with you. But the problem is, the problem Dillian Whyte has in that fight is he's not going to find it as easy to get on the inside as Tyson Fury did. Tyson Fury had a lot more tools to push Deontay Wilder back and get on the inside in comparison to Dillian Whyte. You know, we would see Tyson Fury double and triple the jab in pushing Deontay Wilder back. Dillian Whyte doesn't really do that. Tyson Fury was coming forwards with subtle head movement. Tyson Fury actually, for a big man, has quick feet, and he was able to close the distance relatively quickly, and he was also making Deontay Wilder bite on every single feint that he threw. Dillian Whyte, has no feint game. He doesn't really double and triple the jab. He's got very slow feet, and defensively, he is nowhere near the level of a Tyson Fury. When you see Dillian Whyte pressure guys, yeah, he'll pressure a guy with a hard jab, but basically he'll follow these guys around the ring in a straight line, doesn't really offer too much head movement, and in my opinion, he's not really that great at applying pressure. He's not really that great at cutting the ring off. So for me, Dillian Whyte would have a much harder time trying to fight the sort of fight that Tyson Fury fought against Deontay Wilder in their rematch. Dillian just offers a lot more openings than Tyson Fury did. He doesn't have the same tools to get on the inside as Tyson Fury did, and for me that fight is very risky for Dillian Whyte. He could easily get knocked out in that fight. I know it's very trendy to basically say Deontay Wilder's shit, he can't do this, he can't do that, blah-de-blah-de-blah. And yeah, no doubt, Deontay Wilder has a lot of problems, but he's still only been beaten by one man in Tyson Fury, who is arguably the best heavyweight in the world. You know, some of the things that Deontay Wilder does well, I think potentially matches up quite well with Dillian Whyte's style. You know, Deontay Wilder on the outside, he's not really a great jabber. He does have a good jab when he uses it, but mainly he's kind of fiddling around with a lead hand, pouring with a jab, and looking for that straight right hand. He'll basically try and get a tell out of you. He'll try and get you to commit, and then he'll let go with that straight right hand. And if Dillian in that fight is on the outside for large periods of time, there's a very good chance he can get knocked out, because you can see Deontay Wilder playing that lead hand game with his jab hand, you know, pouring it, kind of fiddling around, and you could see him making Dillian Whyte bite and basically trying to fly in with that right hand, and I could easily see Dillian Whyte get caught with Deontay Wilder's right hand. When Dillian Whyte tries to throw from range on the outside, very often this guy falls short and he'll leave himself way off balance, and against somebody like Deontay Wilder, that is a recipe for disaster. Wilder has a lot of flaws, and flaws which Dillian Whyte can exploit. However, getting to the point to exploit those flaws won't be an easy task for Dillian Whyte. Mark my words on that. I see this quite frankly, I see this fight right now. If they were to fight tomorrow, I would see Wilder versus Dillian Whyte as a 50-50 fight. I would not be confident whoever I picked in that fight, to tell you the truth. But I disagree with the narrative that now Deontay Wilder's been beat, Dillian Whyte just walks through him no problem whatsoever. If he goes in there with that mindset, he could easily get his head sent to row Z by that Deontay Wilder right hand. For me, that fight's a 50-50 fight, like a coin flip type fight. You know, basically who gets it right on the night. It's that type of fight. And yeah, I don't really see like how people are so confident in picking Dillian Whyte to win that fight. You know, Dillian can be knocked out. He can be hurt. We've seen that on numerous times. Dillian Whyte also has a lot of flaws. He's very raw, just like Deontay Wilder. We know about Deontay's flaws. They are very well covered. I don't need to go over those again. But Dillian himself has a lot of flaws. He's extremely raw, just like Deontay Wilder. He might be a slightly better boxer than Wilder, but there's really not too much in it, in my opinion. And yeah, this fight to me is fascinating. I would love this fight to happen next. I think somebody gets knocked the F out, quite frankly, and it would be fireworks both in the build-up and in the fight itself. I think this, if boxing was like a run like it should be run, this is the fight that we should get next. Deontay Wilder versus Dillian Whyte. I have my doubts. I think the people around, you know, especially Deontay Wilder, more than likely will want to go a different route. But one can hope. I hope they actually make serious negotiations for this fight, because I think this would be a treat for the boxing fans as a whole. And like I say, I know a lot of people like to write off Deontay Wilder, and I totally see why, given how he's acted since that Fury loss. I totally understand why. But if Wilder does actually get back to what he was, he can still beat guys like Dillian Whyte, in my opinion. He would have a good chance in this sort of fight. But yeah, share your thoughts below. What do you think of this potential fight? Do you think it will happen? Share your thoughts below. It's been your guy Del Boy. Peace.